is engaging in argument from evidence. Engaging in arguments from evidence. So, engaging in argument and evidence is a major practice in science and engineering, but in particular, in scientific research, the goal of this practice is scientific consensus around a particular question. Scientific consensus or collective agreement around a particular question. Yeah. So, argumentation can happen at a variety of points in scientific research. Some examples could be that scientific argumentation happens over data that's being analyzed. So what we just did, where we started to make claims about where on Earth you expect the highest incidence of spillovers, that was the beginning of what would turn into scientific argumentation. What's up? Particular question. Particular question. Consensus. So it can happen in analyzing data, but argumentation can also happen when you are designing an investigation where you are trying to determine the most effective method for an experiment. So argumentation based on evidence can be used in designing an experiment, can be used in analyzing data. Argumentation can be used in refining your research question. Right? Scientists do this all this time, and it's most effective when it's done based on evidence. Now, evidence-based arguments are essential for determining the best explanation or method. Now, that explanation can be for a particular phenomenon that's being studied, or like I highlighted, the best method for an experiment. But it's likely the case that when you see that term argument, you might read that with a variety of tones. What I'm specifically talking about here is a productive argument. What I would classify as a useless or non-productive argument is one in which unsupported claims are just yelled at the other person without actually providing evidence and engaging in a productive discussion. So in the scientific community, that looks like just throwing unsupported claims at other scientists for the sake of trying to be right or the first one to say something. without actually providing evidence. So when we engage in argumentation in this class, a couple of tips for this practice. The first is that for a productive argument to occur, there must be a norm of listening to understand, not to respond. All right, so this is not a debate. In scientific argumentation, this is not a debate. So, a productive argument actually involves you trying to understand the evidence being presented, whereas in a debate, you would be more focused on, I need to have something to say right after. Okay, number 2 is to provide evidence for any claim brought into the conversation or to prompt someone to do so. So anytime a new claim is brought into the conversation, evidence should be provided, and if it's not, the other people should prompt that person to do so. Okay, and number 3, what's up? Yep. Number 3 is a good practice is to summarize the convo at various points. So as you are discussing your arguments, in order to determine if you are actually making progress, it's a good practice to summarize what agreements have been made, what evidence was used to reach that agreement, and if you can't come up with anything, then you probably need to address either how you're going about the conversation, or the last piece is you need to refine your question or clarify your question. Sometimes it's hard to make progress if your question that you are talking about is so vague that there's actually no argumentation occurring. All right. So, the last thing here, 2 connections to COVID-19. The first one we just started, which is something scientists are trying to still figure out, is which region of Earth is a spillover event most likely to occur in. And what is the best methods of prevention? Okay, but the second one that you're going to study in your assignment, number 4, is at the very beginning of the pandemic, an argument over was COVID-19 more or less severe than the flu? And what evidence do we have to back that up? All right. Those are 2 examples of topics that scientists have engaged in argumentation over throughout the pandemic.